my name is Mark. This is my 1/32 scale Strombecker slot car track made in the 1960s. In this series of short videos, I'm going to be explaining the things that I learned along the way about 1/32 scale slot car racing. I grew up in the 1970s racing AFX HO scale cars, but I've never played with 1/32 scale until recently. My older brother grew up in the era of 1/32 scale, and this was his track, and many of the cars you're going to see were his. So as I learn, ride along with me and see how cool these 1/32 scale cars can be. Thanks. In this video, we're going to look at a few of the different chassis designs that Strombecker had through the years. Much like real cars, the Strombecker cars changed chassis nearly every year. And at the same time, they had multiple different designs for different purposes. They had some designed for home slot car tracks and some for competitive racing at commercial facilities. So what you see lined up on the track here is a representation of every chassis that I own. There are many others too that I don't have. Maybe I'll have them someday, but this is quite an array of different chassis designs. So I'm going to quickly step through each one and just show you the differences. This car is a model of the Indy car that A.J. Foyt won the 1961 Indianapolis 500 in. This is a plastic chassis that's completely enclosed except for an opening on the bottom for the motor. Many of these motors in the early days were open motors, wherein you can see the armature of the motor. Later on, they had what they call can type motors. We'll look at those later. Those are fully enclosed as far as the workings, the armature and everything goes, but these early motors were all open like this. Another design that they had, this is an earlier design, is a plastic rail type chassis. This particular one just snaps into the body. Some of the others, you'll see these holes, some of the others screw into the body, but this screw just snapped in and has a Mabuchi type motor. All the motors were Japanese and mostly made by companies like Mabuchi, but this one was actually branded Mabuchi, I believe. This is a Corvette. See, that comes right apart. I let it fall apart in my hands there. This is a early Corvette. You'll notice that most of the slot cars are modeled after race cars. Some of them are modeled after street cars too, but by far and wide, the popularity is with the race car copies. This is a Porsche, and it has a smaller chassis. If you compare this to the one we just looked at, the wheelbase is shorter. The chassis is made of thinner pieces, and it also screws in. This makes a lighter car. This is a really light and fast car here. This is one of my favorites. It handles really well. A longer wheelbase, but similar type chassis was this one and this Ferrari GTO. This one screws in rather than snaps in, but it's more of a form factor like the one you saw in the Corvette. It's got a little bit thinner rails on it, but not as thin as the ones on the Porsche. Yet another type of chassis. Strombecker also made several metal chassis. This Ford F car, which was a prototype in 1966 for the GT40, is made out of aluminum. and it's a sandwich design. We'll look at that one a little bit later. But it's two pieces of metal sandwiched together, and it's very, very light, these aluminum ones, and they're screwed in with 3 screws. Most of the Strombecker cars that screw in have 3 screws, 2 in the back and 1 in the center up front. Next, we have an all plastic chassis. This one pops in with little plastic pins, so you can just pull it apart. If I don't break the pins, sometimes these pins break. You just pop it apart, and there's the inner workings. The motor lead wires going to the pickups. Those are called braids. We'll talk about the parts later. I just wanted to show you the difference in the chassis for now. I lost one of my pins. I'll put that in later. See, you just pop it in the hole, if you can get a hold of it. And push it in. And now it's held firmly in place. This is a Ferrari Dino. This is a hybrid chassis made out of 2 pieces, plastic and brass. And that pin is all that holds these 2 pieces together. The front part just slides into the brass part, and then they are held in by those plastic pins. This Dino has got a really hot motor in it. For its size, it's hard to keep this one on the track. Another type of chassis is a fully enclosed chassis, like on this Porsche. This is all plastic, but it's fully enclosed, much like that A.J. Foyt Indy car, except for an opening for the open motor. It's got braids that come down through the bottom of the plastic. This is a Porsche. Lastly, we have Strombecker's competition chassis. This is a Cheetah car from the Can-Am series in the 60s. This is an all brass chassis, and this is a very hot motor. This is known as a Hemi motor because they like to be dramatic. But this brass chassis is the heaviest of all of them. It's got heavy duty components. It's got a metal ring gear on it here, and it's got a pickup system that's multiple pieces with screws. Again, we'll look at the individual components a little bit later. Right now, I just wanted to show you the difference in chassis. This is a really fast car, but it's really hard to handle too. You got to be a good driver to keep this one on the track because it's so fast. And that's the Strombecker cars and their chassis. Next, we'll take a look at the individual parts of a car, and I'll explain how they work and some of the upgrades you can do to them. Thanks. Have a good day.